So Resident Evil 5 is a game made by a ragtag group of nobodies called Capsule Computers. It released on March 5th, 2009, and it went on to shatter the previous sales record for the franchise by selling 14 million copies worldwide, making it the highest selling Resident Evil game even to this day. Releasing in an era where both Gears of War and Dead Space existed, it featured some mind-shattering mechanics like being able to walk and shoot at the same time. I'm just kidding, because that would just totally ruin the franchise, am I right? I mean, just go watch some military videos, you nerd. The original marketing for the game hinted at quite a different experience, with Chris not only having a vaguely normal physique, but developers also talked about having a new sun and shadow mechanic, where staying out in the sun would lead to the player seeing mirages and hallucinations. And although the feature never saw the light of day, the game was still universally loved by all critics. More importantly, it featured co-op, and releasing on the first generation of consoles with easy access to the internet, the game sold like hotcakes and allowed for friends, families, brothers, mothers, sisters, fisters to all gather around and enjoy some good old Capcom zombie action. And if you thought Resident Evil 2's liquor was scary, well, this game is not one, not two, but 27,000 of them. And with the Resident Evil 4 remake about to drop, I figured it's time to go back and play Resident Evil 5, because this game is kinda wild. So the game starts with a mysterious hooded person watching a man being turned into something that resembles like a mutated version of the Las Plagas from RE4. We then cut to Resident Evil 1 protagonist Chris the Gun Redfield, who after apparently losing Jill in a fight with Albert Wesker, takes on a mission in Africa with the anti-terrorism unit, the BSAA, after finding a lead that she might still be alive. And after arriving, we're introduced to Sheva Alomar.
Welcome to Africa. My name is Sheva Alomar.
And we learn of the whereabouts of the missing McPoyle brother Irving, and set out to find him. And along the way, we get some wholesome commentary between Chris and Sheva.
Remember, we're a team. Whatever happens, we stick together.
Don't worry. I may not be as big as you, but I can still hold my own.
It's like a goddamn Astartes isn't as big as Chris Sheva. And after taking a leisurely stroll among the warm and inviting locals, we witness some oral being administered, and we realize that something is not quite what it seems around here. And what follows is one of the craziest opening hours of a Resident Evil game to date. Not only are we battling our way through hordes of Las Plagas infected locals, we also fight the Chainsaw Man from Resident Evil 4, but since we're not playing as little Leon anymore, we easily lay him low by throwing a couple of thousand punches his way. And after manhandling a younger version of Jack Baker, we catch up with Irving, who flees with the mysterious figure from the intro. We stop to say hello to some psyched up locals. After which we make our way through the second craziest set piece in the entire franchise, where we blast motorcycles filled with liquid Michael Bay. After which we fight another Resident Evil 4 throwback in the form of the El Gigante, all while Sheva makes astute observations like,
Look! There's something coming out of it! We should try aiming at those!
Honestly, this game is compressed like half of the Resident Evil 4 campaign into like 2 hours, and the game hasn't even shown us the melee combat tutorial yet. So why the hell is this game so crazy compared to the other titles, you might ask? Good question, time for some history. So you see, before Resident Evil 5 development started, several legendary figures like Shinji Mikami and Hideki Kamiya, who directed like literally half of all your favorite Capcom games, had left the company, as well as composer Masami Ueda, who helped compose this masterpiece right here. And although Koda Suzuki ended up being the lead composer on Resident Evil 5 after his work on Devil May Cry 4, which released a year prior and has such bangers as and with new director Yasuhiro Ampo, who would come into his own and absolutely slay it on the Resident Evil 2 remake, here they were still finding their style. And with the sad passing of the franchise's head writer Noboru Sugimura, the series basically lost all direction in 3 different departments all at once. And all those crazy early concepts like Chris having a vaguely normal physique, the light and dark mechanics, they all got scrapped, as well as a ton of other things. And what we ended up with is something that plays a bit too safe by relying on all the thrills from the previous games. Also the fact that it's set out in the sun doesn't really help with the horror tone, so let's slap some night paint on it, now make it spookier. Perfect. So we do get one of the few bits of character development in the entire game between Chris and Sheva, and after running through the game's obligatory water level, we come across another Chainsaw Man, but you know the drill.
Toasty!
And we finally catch up to Irvin, who is yet again taken down by Sheva's unrivaled observational skills.
Something that undergoes such a rapid transformation must have a weakness.
And after cosplaying as Nathan Drake for a while, sick moves, guys. We finally get to the Tri-Cell facilities where the game starts to pick up some pace again. And just when you thought the game couldn't get any crazier, the game drops all pretense of ever being a horror game as it showers you in one of the series' most iconic enemies while you beat them down with the might of Thor himself. Napping the Ant, we board a ship filled with military men armed to the teeth, and we smack our way through them like we're Will Smith at the Oscars. And our smacking rampage continues as we beat down soldiers, lickers, big soldiers, bugs, lickers, your mom, until we get to Wesker, where it's revealed that not only is Jill alive, she's the mysterious plague doctor from the introduction, and even worse, she's been binge watching the Matrix movies. And after a pretty hectic battle of hide and seek,
You can't hide forever!
Wesker realizes he's got better things to do and lets us free Jill, urges us to continue on and stop Wesker. And we quickly follow him to the next obligatory Resident Evil level, the Fire Temple. I mean, it's a ship. It's a ship, guys, because there's always a ship. And it's filled with army guys, big guys that would blast away with guns, lots and lots of guns. And then we get to this scene with Wesker. And honestly, this cutscene doesn't need to be in the game. You see, Spencer is referenced pretty heftily throughout a lot of the mainline titles, and here he just does some speech about becoming a god and then literally gets punished to death by Wesker. Like Spencer, the Spencer of Spencer Mansion fame, killed off just like that. Honestly, I'd say just remove the entire Spencer storyline out of the game entirely. You can still have Wesker and Jill supposedly die in a fight, but just do it somewhere else while focusing more on Tri-Cell, because for a game that is trying to set up Tri-Cell as a new big bad, there's not a whole lot of that juicy Resident Evil mystery feeling going on. Anyway, after realizing our baton is useless, with tanks and punches to the chest before we realize we have to use the rocket launcher to kill him, unfortunately, Wesker has been blasting gear, leading to Chris to realize that the only thing that can kill someone who blasts gear is to blast them with more gear, after which he flees and Chris and Sheva takes up the chase. And after another hectic battle inside the airplane, we crash land into a volcano where we finally get the reason we all played this game for. And after finally beating down Wesker, the highest selling Resident Evil game of all time finally ends. So with a game as crazy as this, why would you ever need a remake, you might say? Do you remember Yasuhiro Ampo, the Resident Evil 2 remake director I mentioned earlier? Yeah, now imagine him remaking his own game now that he's more of an established director, with an army of veterans at Capcom by his side. Also, there's like an ungodly amount of people who refuse to play horror games alone, and the franchise, as well as gaming in general, is now bigger than ever, which could potentially turn an already massive franchise even bigger and getting more people to enjoy the games that we all enjoy. And we also seem to be at the end of the Capcom cycle where we go from horror to action to horror to action, and this game fits right into the action phase they're currently in. Also, Capcom has been pretty good in general with keeping the horror tone of the original. Like, remember, Resident Evil 3 wasn't made by Capcom themselves, it was outsourced. And since Resident Evil 5 is by far the least scary game in the bunch, I think it can do with some touching up, you know? And while there is a whole list of cut content to choose from, let's be realistic, since Capcom is most likely going to keep such a successful game fairly close to the original premise. Like, you can do something like the game We Were Here Too and split everyone up and have them focus on solving stressful puzzles while the other players getting their shit kicked in every now and then. Maybe have the light and day mechanic affect weapon sway and make it harder to aim or make you move slower. Like, this mechanic alone could make the otherwise action-oriented game a lot more tense, even if they set it during the day. Like, you can maybe tidy up the story a bit as well, like retcon these guys to fit in with the vampires of RE Village. And I really think that if they remade Resident Evil 5, it could become an absolute beast of a game. Anyway, what do you guys think? Because I really enjoyed the discussion everyone was having about the Dead Space 2 remake, if they're gonna remake it and why or why not they shouldn't do it. So I really want to see your guys' comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.